The moment Denzel Washington stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere changed. Not because he was a movie star, but because he carried the kind of stillness that made everyone else second-guess their noise. The show had been billed as a conversation on justice, a panel of voices from different backgrounds, coming together to discuss the American legal system. But the booking wasn't balanced, and Denzel knew it. Across from him sat Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, known for her fierce televised defenses of power and her polished indictments of anyone who questioned it. For the first 10 minutes, the conversation stayed polite. Pam leaned on numbers, pointing to statistics about crime. Denzel listened, quiet, hands folded. Then came the pivot. Pam said, "The real crisis isn't over-policing. It's under accountability. People commit crimes and blame the system instead of themselves. And that narrative? It's dangerous." The host turned to Denzel. "You've spoken about injustice in America. What's your response to that?" Denzel sat up straighter. His voice was calm. He said, "What's dangerous isn't people asking questions. What's dangerous is people in power pretending there's no reason to ask." Pam smiled tightly. "That's not what I'm saying." Denzel didn't blink. "It's exactly what you're saying. You're painting struggle as excuse, and people as problems." Pam leaned forward, her voice rising. "Excuse me, I've dedicated my life to justice. I've prosecuted criminals, protected victims." Denzel's voice cut through, low and clear. "You've protected systems, not people. And when the system is broken, defending it isn't justice. It's complicity." Pam's smile faded. "Now, before you see what Denzel does next, and why it left even the moderator silent, I need to tell you something. Segments like this, they get buried. They don't trend. They get clipped, edited, reshaped into sound bites that miss the point. But you deserve the full truth. So if you believe in moments that challenge the script, if you want to see what happened when someone finally said enough, then hit subscribe now. Subscribe before this moment disappears. Because what Denzel says next doesn't just stop the debate. It resets the whole stage." Pam's voice rose again. "You're mischaracterizing everything I've said. I support reform. But we can't just excuse bad behavior because of poverty or race." Denzel's response came without hesitation. He said, "And that's the problem. You reduce structural oppression to individual behavior. You frame centuries of exploitation as bad choices made in a vacuum. You don't see the full picture, Pam. You only see what fits your story." Pam scoffed. "I've worked in real courtrooms. I've seen real victims." "Have you?" Denzel's eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed even. "I've lived in a world where people like me are assumed guilty before the facts are even heard. I've had friends stopped, frisked, followed. I've had family members jailed for things others would get warnings for. So yes, I've seen victims. And not all of them look like your headlines." The host tried to interject. "Let's keep the tone respectful." Denzel turned to him briefly. "Respect doesn't mean silence, especially when people are being erased with a smile." Pam crossed her arms. "You think I'm the villain here?" Denzel paused. Then he said, "I think you're too comfortable with the system to question who it hurts. And that makes you dangerous. Not because of what you say, but because of what you refuse to see." The room fell quiet. The audience wasn't clapping. They were listening, really listening. Because Denzel wasn't performing. He was revealing. Pam's tone turned sharper. "So now I'm dangerous for believing in law and order? For expecting accountability?" Denzel leaned forward, hands clasped. "No. You're dangerous because you expect accountability from the powerless and offer immunity to the powerful. You speak of law and order, but what you defend is control and silence." Pam shook her head. "That's unfair." Denzel said, "What's unfair is watching a system choke the life out of people while you defend the policies that made it possible." Pam tried to redirect. "Let's talk about crime. Let's talk about victims." Denzel cut in. But let's talk about all the victims. The ones who never made it to court. The ones who were presumed guilty because of their zip code. The ones who were sentenced not by a judge, but by the color of their skin." Pam raised her voice. That's inflammatory, and you know it. Denzel stayed still. It's the truth. And the only reason it sounds inflammatory is because we've gotten too used to pretending everything's fine. The moderator looked from one to the other, unsure whether to step in. Pam said, "This is why people stop listening. Because when you shame them, they shut down." Denzel answered, "Good. Let them shut down. Then maybe they'll reflect. Then maybe they'll understand that this isn't about shame. It's about justice. And justice doesn't coddle comfort." Pam opened her mouth, but the words didn't come, because the foundation of her argument had started to crack, and everyone could see it. Pam sat back slightly, trying to regain control of the conversation. She said, "You talk about justice, but justice also means safety. You can't have neighborhoods plagued by crime and blame the system when people demand protection." Denzel nodded once, slowly. Safety is not the opposite of justice. It's the result of it. But when you prioritize punishment over prevention, when you build more prisons than schools, you're not protecting people. You're protecting a hierarchy. Pam tried again. "So what? We stop enforcing laws." Denzel looked at her directly. "No. We start questioning which laws get enforced and who they're written to protect." The audience was quiet again. Pam said, "You're making this about race." Denzel replied, "It was always about race. You just didn't have to see it." The moderator shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should." Denzel held up a hand, not aggressively, but with quiet authority. He said, "No. Let her finish. Let me respond. Don't rush past the discomfort. That's where the truth lives." Pam said, "You're putting words in my mouth." Denzel answered, "No. I'm listening to what you're not saying. And I'm hearing the echoes of every system that ever justified inequality by calling it law." She looked down for a moment, then back up. "You crossed the line," Pam said. Denzel leaned in. "No. I revealed it." Pam's voice had lost some of its edge. She said, "You're not being fair. You act like people like me haven't tried to fix things." Denzel's tone softened slightly, but not his conviction. "I don't doubt you've tried. I doubt what you were trying to fix. You were trying to make the system work better, not questioning whether the system itself was broken." Pam looked at the moderator, hoping for a reprieve, but the moderator stayed silent. Denzel said, "You want to talk about fairness? Let's talk about a black man getting pulled over for a broken taillight and not making it home. Let's talk about a teenager getting shot for walking through the wrong neighborhood. Let's talk about mothers teaching their kids to keep their hands visible at all times because a gesture could cost them their life." Pam tried to respond, but Denzel kept going. "You don't have to live that. You don't wake up with that fear. So don't tell me what's fair until you've lived a life where fairness is the exception, not the rule." The audience didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just listened, because they knew something rare was happening. Pam sat back, lips pressed together. Denzel looked over at her. Then he said, "This isn't personal. This is structural. You just happen to be sitting on the side that the structure protects." And in that moment, the debate wasn't about opinion anymore. It was about truth. The moderator cleared his throat, trying once more to regain balance. He said, "Let's give each of you a final thought." Pam sat up straight, her voice tighter now. She said, "We all want a better future. But we can't do that by dividing the country. We need solutions, not blame." Denzel waited. Then, with a quiet calm, he spoke. "Solutions begin with honesty. And honesty feels like blame when you've never had to carry it before." The audience murmured, not in disagreement, in recognition. Pam looked away. Denzel continued, "We can't fix what we won't face. We can't heal what we won't name. So if naming it feels uncomfortable, good. That's the beginning of growth." Pam said nothing. Denzel turned toward the audience. He said, "To anyone watching, if you've ever been told your truth was too angry, too loud, too inconvenient, don't let them silence you. The world doesn't change when people make speeches. It changes when people stop pretending the pain isn't there." He stood up, not with anger, but with finality. Pam remained seated. The moderator tried to wrap up, but his voice felt small compared to what had just been said. The debate ended, but the moment didn't. Clips went viral within the hour. Hashtags trended, not because Denzel shouted, but because he didn't need to. Pam Bondi made no further comments. Denzel Washington, once again, had spoken in a way few dared, not for applause, but for truth. And the silence that followed said everything.